Hi guys, very warm welcome to everyone watching this video, and this video is going to be Introduction to C++ Programming Language and the first video of this course. I was planning on dividing this video into two separate parts, so that in the first part I'm going to explain some basic concepts, some general concepts that are related to C++ and that you need to understand, in my opinion, first before starting to write code. And then in the second part we are going to build our first C++ program. So I'm going to include in the description of this video timestamps so that you can navigate yourself to the coding part if you want. But if you're an absolute beginner, I would recommend you to watch the entire video. Let's explain a couple of concepts before we actually start to write code so that you are familiar with them. You may wonder what kind of applications you can build with C++. Well, C++ is general purpose language. That means that it can be used to build all type of applications. So it is very close to the hardware, and that means that it can manipulate resources easily, so you can build operating systems if you want with it. You can build compilers, browsers, demanding games. So all general purpose software can be built with C++. It is not specific for only one domain, but it can be used to solve and build different types of applications. After that, I would like to mention that C++ is compiled language. That means that the code that you write first has to be compiled or converted, translated into another language that is understandable to your machine, to your computer. So that phase is called compiling code or building code. There are certain errors that can occur in this phase, of course, and those are compile time errors. This type of errors is usually the most common among beginners, among people who are just starting to learn C++, and we are going to demonstrate some of those compile time errors when we start coding. After that, C++ is case-sensitive language. That means that C++ distinguishes between lowercase and uppercase letters. So if you have, for example, a variable all uppercase and then a variable all lowercase, so the same meaning, the same word, those two are going to be treated and understood differently as different variables by C++. So it is case-sensitive language. Why C++ was created? Another question. Because before it there were other programming languages. Well, yes, they were, and it was created in 1980s, and it was created with two programming languages in mind. One of those two was Simula, and the other one was C. So Simula at the time was great language for human way of understanding and representing things. So it was very understandable and easy to use to humans. But at the same time, it was very, very slow. So they decided to combine it with another programming language, a fast one. And at that time, the best choice for that was C programming language. So they combined the two and they got C++. C++ is very, very understandable language, very easy to use by humans. So you can build and maintain huge projects with C++. But at the same time, because of this C part, it is very close to the hardware, so demanding tasks can be executed fast. And also, well, since it was created from C programming language, you can say that any valid C program is actually valid C++ program. So if you've ever built a C program, you have actually built a C++ program already. As I have already said, the code that you write is not directly understandable to your machine. So first, it has to be converted into another language that is understandable to your computer. But the language that is understandable to you is called source code. I am going to put here an example of source code, and I'm also wondering at this moment, what do you think that this code does? So before we started any programming, any coding at all, what do you think that the result of this program is going to be? So just to check how understandable C++ really is, even for someone who has not have a lot of experience in coding. So write in the comments of the video what you think that this code is going to do, and I'm going to check those. So at the same time, you're going to be doing something called writing pseudocode, which means describing what a program does, but just in plain English, so no C++. So this is the source code. After that, that source code is transferred or translated into another form, another language which is understandable to your computer, and that is object code. That object code is usually in the form of binary numbers, so ones and zeros, and that is the only language that your computer actually understands. And this is an example of your machine language. I'm also not going to ask anyone to describe what this here does, because this is highly unreadable and cannot be understood by humans, but as I said, it is the only language that your machine understands. So algorithm, what is algorithm? Algorithm is nothing more than a recipe. So steps, instructions that you write to your computer, list of ingredients and steps that your computer needs to do in order to perform a certain task, that's algorithm. Now that we have understood these concepts, let's switch to more practical part. So the tool that we are going to use is called Visual Studio 2019, and there is a lot of tutorials on YouTube on how you can download and install the Visual Studio, and you can also use community version for free. So when we open Visual Studio, you can see that here in this left part we have our recent projects. So the project that I have recently created, and this may be empty if you haven't used your Visual Studio. So on the other side there is a menu with multiple options. You have the option to check out your code from GitHub here. You can open existing project from your computer and continue working on that. But the option that we are going to use is called Create New Project. So we are going to click that. So this new window now here appears, and we are going to define what kind of project we want. As beginners, we are going to build a very simple app. So we are going to build a C++ console application. So you can type in C++ and make sure to select C++ console application. So not C#, not Visual Basic, but C++. And when you clicked it, you can now when you selected it, you can now click Next. So this new window, now we get a new window where we have to define our project name, location where our project is going to be saved, and our solution name. As default, our solution is named the same as our project. What solution is just actually a group of projects. So if you had a huge application and you wanted to divide it in smaller parts so that it is easier to maintain, you could divide it in multiple projects, but all of those projects would be part of the same solution. So since we are building a simple app, we have only one project, and we will name it My First App. So my first app. And location for our project we can either enter manually, or we can do it by clicking this button here. And I want my files to be saved on desktop, so I'm going to select desktop. And now we are done with creating our project, so with configuring our project, so we can click create. So the tool that we are going to use, Visual Studio, is an IDE, or Integrated Development Environment. That means that it has a lot more options than just those that we as beginners are going to need and use. So for now, I'm going to explain only the most basic ones, the ones that we are going to need as beginners. But as we progress along the way, I'm going to explain the new features that we'll use. So the first thing that you can see here is our Solution Explorer. So if you cannot see your Solution Explorer, you can click here to this view and select Solution Explorer, and that should bring your Solution Explorer back to view. So as we said, our Solution Explorer is named My First App, and it has one project inside it. So this project is this one here. And as you can see, when we created our project, it was created with some default folders and files. For now, we are going to use only one file. So you can delete these folders, header files and resource files if you want. Just right click and click delete. So now this source files folder is where we are going to put our source code files. If you remember from before, I have said that source code is the code that we write and that is understandable to us. So this is our source code file. So this with .cpp extension. So when we created our project, this file was created by default, and if you double click it, it opens here. So this part here is nothing more than a text editor. Really, as any text editor, it just has these different colors depending on the purpose or the role of the code, so that you can manage the code easier. If it were all the same color, it would be harder to read. So for example, this green part here is a comment. Comment is just a note for yourself. So compiler will not try to translate commented lines. So if you type, for example, here this // or that means actually begin comment, and then you can explain, for example, what this preceding code does. So you can write, this will output to the console hello world. So this will output to the console hello world, so that when you, for example, come tomorrow to this code and you have forgotten what this code here does, this will remind you, this comment here. And these are some default comments, which I will delete now. We are not going to need this. So just select everything and click delete as you would in any regular text editor. This part here also. Now let's explain what we got here. So this include IOStream is actually a header file. So it is also called a library. And this IOStream is input-output stream. So it allows us to input and output data to and from our program. For example, thanks to this, we can use commands such as this here. So cout or console output. So without having this, we would actually have to program ourselves how we will input and output data in our console. So we will not delete this line here. Now check this code here. It says main. Well, that means that this is our main function. So a main procedure that our program is going to execute. So whatever you put actually in these braces here, your program will execute. And the execution of your program begins here and it ends here. So since this here is the scope of your main function, so you can collapse it by clicking here, and you see that everything is collapsed now. So for now, it's enough for you to know that this is our main method, our main procedure. And later in this course, we are going to learn and understand what methods are used for, what is their purpose, and we are also going to create a lot of our own methods. So now we have this cout or console output, which is the command to output to the console. And then we have it also combined with this std and these redirection signs. So std is the namespace for this cout. So that's how your computer knows what this cout really is. I will show you later how you can get rid of this if you really want. And we also have this hello world in quotation marks. Okay, let's see what we have learned so far. We said that this is our solution. Inside it has one project, and within that project we have this file with extension .cpp, which is our source code. So if we double click this file, it brings us here, so to this text editor. And this is our program. This is the code of our program. Now, how we can run this code? Well, see this green play button here, well, that's our start button. It's really intuitive. So if I click it, we will get our hello world text here, which I have outputted to the console. And you can also see that we have, besides our hello world, we have gotten some junk text here. So what I'm going to do is show you how you can get rid of this in a moment. So let's close our program for a moment. And what you need to do in order to get rid of this junk text is type this command here. So system pause greater than 0 in quotation marks, and the end of command. You notice that at the end of each command, you have to put this semicolon, and if you didn't, it would result in a compiler error, and I will demonstrate that. Let's run our program now, and you will see that our junk text has disappeared. So as I said, after each command you have to put this semicolon, and if you didn't do that, it would create a syntactic error, and then your compiler would not be able to understand, and your program would not run. Actually, your program would not start. So if I delete this semicolon here, you see that something has changed in this window here. So you see this error red sign. Well, if I hover over it, you see it here, also here. It says expected a semicolon, which is very clearly says that you are missing a semicolon. And if you see this red underline here, it says also expected a semicolon. So before this, you are missing a semicolon here. So if I add it here, our error will disappear. So if you try to run your program before fixing this error, it would prompt you with a window like this. So it says you have 1 failed project and 0 succeeded project. So this is the code building that I have mentioned before. So this one project, which is actually the only project that we have, has failed building. So your compiler does not actually understand what you have written, since you are missing a semicolon. So another thing how you could know that you have syntax error, except from this prompt window that we got, is this syntax error, so missing semicolon before this closed brace. And if you click it here, it will take you right where you need to go to fix your error. So it's very useful. And if I press my play button again, it now says hello world. So I will stop the program now. You can do it either by clicking this red sign here which says stop debugging, or you can click this X on the console window. So if some other error has happened to you, which didn't happen to me here, you can write that in the comments down below and I will gladly help you. Also, someone else can help you from the other people learning from this video, and I would highly encourage that, since in my opinion the best way to learn something is to try to reproduce what you've learned and to explain it to someone else. So write in the comments if you got some other error. Now let's see how we can upgrade our program. So let's write something else. Let's add, for example, std to column size console out. So under quotation marks I will put something that I want to write out. So let's say, for example, my name is Saldina. You can put your name, of course. And at the end of each command you put semicolon. And let's add one more. So let's say today is Friday. And also add end of command here. So it should write, when we run our program, it should write these sentences in this order here. So you can run your program. And if you can notice, it has this new line in the first sentence. So this is because of this \n. So that puts whatever text is coming after in a new line. So you can put that text in a new line by either entering a \n or with adding this std end line. So std end line, and I have previously stopped my program. If I run it again, you see that we have gotten a new line here. You see also that this std here is becoming a bit tedious to write again and again. And I've told you that I'm going to show you how you can get rid of this. So what you can do is you can put this std on a global level. So you can say using namespace std, and what will that do is reference this std namespace on a global level, so you don't have to reference it every time that you are using it. And now we can delete all of these. So wherever you have written std, that's going to be referenced here now, and you don't need to write it separately. And if we run our program here, we are going to get our result. So we have also this new line added by either /n or this end line here. Okay, so in this video we have learned how we can output data in a console, and in the next video we are going to see how we can input data into our console. So we can ask user to input data, and we are also going to talk about variables and data types. Another thing that I want to show you before I finish this video is, you may be wondering, okay, do I have to start Visual Studio every time that I want to run my program? Is there any other way for me to execute my program? The answer is no, you don't have to start Visual Studio every time. There is another way to start your program from Windows. So let's save all changes that we have made here so far. So you can press Ctrl+S, or if you have made any changes, you see this star here. So it is indicating that you have unsaved changes. So you can right-click on that and click Save. And you see that star disappears now. So let's find a folder where we have created our project. For me, that was desktop. If you followed this tutorial from the beginning, you created it also, and if you followed me, you created it also on desktop. So you can open your folder. You can go to debug, and inside that you see this file here. It says application. So this is your program. So if you right click on that and you check its properties, you will see that it says .exe. That means that it is executable file. So that is your program, that is your application. And if you double click on that, well, you see that it runs same as in Visual Studio. So you can start your program from Windows. Actually, if you want to show it to your friends or someone else, you don't have to open Visual Studio each time that you want to run your program. But one more thing to keep in mind is that if I go to Visual Studio now and I add one more line, let's say we write out "Have a nice day." So, and if I save it, so Ctrl+S, and if I try to open my program from Windows now, what you'll see now is that this new line that I have just added is missing. But why is that so? Well, if you remember, when we were talking about building code, we said that that's the phase of converting source code that you have written into a code that your machine understands. And when you start your code from Visual Studio, it does that process automatically for you. So it builds your code and then it executes your program. But when you are starting your program from Windows, it is missing that phase of building code. So your recent changes, your last changes were not translated, so your computer has the only translated version that it has is the previous one, so without your recently added changes. What you need to do is you either have to run your code from Visual Studio first, or it's enough for you just to build that code inside Visual Studio. And what happens when you do that, so just click here and you can click build, and what happens is your Visual Studio translates this code that you have written and it saves it here. And now when you run it, and when your Windows runs it, it has the latest version, it has the latest changes. So this is the small trick that I wanted to show you. So this would be all for this video, and if you came across some errors that didn't happen here to me, or you have any questions, you can write those in the comments and I will answer those. And if you watched so far, you can like this video, you can subscribe and share it with someone else who would also like to learn programming, and I will see you in the next video.